with that, if you wouldn't mind, if everybody could mute themselves, and then, when it's time to speak, you can feel free to unmute yourself. And Michelle, you want to start for us this morning?
Thank you. Thanks, Deanne, and thanks, team. And thank you all for joining this morning. I want to start off at first expressing that, this meeting is really designed for the business community as an update to where we are and what we need to do with the current situation on Witherspoon Street and going forward. But we will not be discussing and bringing up whether or not the one-way is the correct way. We have already ordinanced this. If anyone has anything to say about that, the appropriate venue would be at Monday night's council meeting, so the full council can hear you, since this is not a full council meeting. But what we do want to go over, and there's quite an agenda, is we would like to go over the current design and some changes that we want to make as far as the curbside pickup areas. We want to talk about the timing on the meters, wayfinding signage, and we're going to get an update from our traffic consultant, and basically the configuration in the parking spaces. And and thank you all to Deanna Stockton and her team. I would like, before we start, to introduce our new administrator who's on the call. That's Bernie Hustovic. I hope I said that right.
Hustovic, yes. Good morning, everyone. Good to meet you all.
Thank you for joining. And our mayor's on the call, and so I will, Deanna, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to start sharing a presentation. Let's see here. Make sure I'm in the right view. Okay, can everybody see that? Make sure I can move through my presentation. Okay, can everybody see that? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Tejal, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to just start off with the curbside pickup changes. Those of you that are that like our Princeton Police Facebook page, you may have seen this pop up on Facebook about the need to be in compliance with curbside pickup regulations. I know there's been a lot of issues with people stopping and standing and parking in that curbside loading zone. So we've been talking with police and with council and others, and so the idea is that we are going to make some changes, looking at removing curbside pickup, and we would be reinstating the existing parking spaces. Some dining zones will remain on the street near Agricola, near Mezzaluna, down near the A and B, and Jules and Mamoons, that area. This is not set in stone, as Michelle said in her email that went out this morning. We're still working through this. But the idea is, one, to be responsive to, the upcoming governor's action to reopen indoor dining. It's to address the bad behavior that we understand is occurring on the roadway. And it's really to kind of clean up the space. We would get rid of the paint striping that's on the roadway for the curbside pickup, so that people aren't confused as to what the regulations are. So we can discuss that at the end of the meeting, or if there's comments now, if anybody has them, please feel free to make them.
I have a question.
Yes.
First of all, good morning to everyone, and thank you. The person, I'm Michael from La Mezzaluna. The business next to me, you just decide to put tables and chairs outside. I'm just curious if you will be allowed to use it or not.
No.
No, okay.
Well, Michael, when we looked at that and we talked about that, the 3 spaces would allow some of the wholesome tea to still have that one little area. Remember?
Okay, perfect.
1 meter, that 3 meters, it doesn't really, it includes a little bit of their space that we talked about.
Okay, perfect.
We
Just,
talked about that.
I'm not saying he has to go down all the way down the road, but just maybe space also of his store, because now he bought tables and things, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm in the end, I don't even need to speak. I'm just sitting here and I'm seeing it, and I saw the picture that you guys saw it, because I'm speaking for him in the end, because I've done, but I would imagine we'll feel bad because he just bought tables and chairs. That's why. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deanna, this is Elizabeth. I was just wondering if you could circle the areas in which that's changed on this drawing that you show.
Oh gosh, there's quite a few changes. My annotation skills aren't the greatest, so actually let me just move my cursor instead. It would be this area here, the outdoor dining area here would be removed or really kind of consolidated down into this space. I think we're opening up more in front by Agricola and Hamilton. And then also at this end, opening up the parking spaces. And previously the curbside pickup zone was in this stretch on the west side of the through lane, and that would go away. We would keep the curbside pickup location here in the 2-lane yard, but that would be it at this point.
I want to ask too, what we were talking about in terms of split. I don't know if we can do that now when it's not permanent, if we could put some signage, but we were talking with some of the businesses about having a split timing on loading zones. We had done this in front of Brooks Brothers. I don't know if it worked or not, but the idea being that maybe at the ends of the street we could have, because we've got a lot of large trucks coming in and they can be very, disruptive and cause a safety hazard as well. If we could do like a split timing, so in other words, designate 2 or 3 spots that would be loading zones, say from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then convert back to regular parking after that. And I would imagine with signage and with the police enforcement, if that makes sense, would that be something that the businesses would want or see that would be productive? And we have open that to conversation.
I do have a little comment.
Okay.
I think a good idea, so to control the deliveries, because but we also, in the end, we're going to concentrate all the deliveries for Witherspoon on that time. It can be an issue too, because there is a lot of deliveries, especially on the weekend. If we concentrate all deliveries in one time, but basically we're going to have all these trucks appear in 2-3 hours, and they all concentrate in one timing. Instead, like that, they are like some trucks can come in the afternoon, and we won't have them in that 3 hours period. That's the only issue I see, but I do see that they need some regulation on that, because it sometimes is maybe we see it more because it changed the way that the direction on the street. But I definitely agree that it needs a little bit of an organization here and to fix a little bit, because people are abusing of parking for the pickup, especially those orange lane, yellow lane, that lane there, it's always full of cars. They're left there for half hour sometimes, and it's not right.
Yeah, and without meters, I mean, it's really hard on parking enforcement, to be able to. This is why we want to go back. But we would be talking about a 6-hour window. I mean, I don't 6 a.m. maybe too early, but
6 is a little early, yeah.
So, but to 12, thinking that by the lunchtime, and it's not to say there couldn't be. We're not ordinancing that you could have no deliveries at other times. It would just give that parking space, those parking spaces, those loading zones, the priority during that time where there wouldn't be car parking.
I have maybe if I can add, maybe we can do 2 windows, like 8 a.m. to 11, and after lunch 3 to 5 or 3 to 4 or 2 to 4 or something like that. We could do something like that too, maybe, to spread it out. just an idea. I'm not
An
even.
idea. I don't know about parking enforcement. Wes is on the call. I think that might be a little difficult
Too
in
much,
terms
yeah.
of somebody parks their car, then they have to come
And
and.
then,
book
yeah,
it,
you're right. I
comes
didn't
up.
think that.
It might get a little confusing.
Can I,
Some ideas.
Mike Cormanante, can I speak a second?
Sure, Frank.
Morning, Frank.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Frank.
I know we're not speaking about the ordinances. That's fine, but the clear indication that I've seen on this block is that you need some real discipline by an ordinance with respect to the park, the garbage pickup, the deliveries. I don't have much of a problem of this analysis here. I think there is about 3 or 4 extra parking areas that I don't think are necessary. That's my opinion. Other than that, the question I have is this: I don't like to call it a street. Whatever this is that's going down, what's the size of the curb? How high is the curb?
Frank, we're not yet into the new design.
Okay.
This is just curbside pickup. And with that, I think that's a great segue. Let me continue through the presentation. And if you can jot down your thoughts on the curbside pickup, feel free to email or hold them till the end of the meeting. But let me just get through the presentation, and hopefully, Frank, we can answer some of those questions for you. All right, so let me continue here. Oh, okay. So we all know this picture. I've used this picture many times to illustrate pre-COVID what Witherspoon Street looked like. A mass of vehicles, a lot of bad behavior from delivery trucks, bad behavior from pedestrians. So, you know, we've looked at what can we do to improve Witherspoon Street from a safety perspective. How can we incorporate the complete streets as well as the green streets theory into this vital corridor? How can we look at flexible design? We all know that flexible design has been a highlight of discussions for this roadway, and obviously the whole goal is that the improvements will increase the economic vitality of the area, that it'll really create a place that people want to visit and spend time in, not just try to get through to avoid the pedestrians jaywalking or the garbage trucks that are double parked, or, you know, the delivery vehicles. So that's what, you know, when we started this process back in February of 2020, you know, this is what we were looking at. And if you recall from the different public meetings we had, there's a lot of public support for these ideals. You know, we had 5 different options that we looked at, you know, the 1-way, the 2-way, the 1 lane of parking, the 2 lanes of parking, closing the road. And so we've been through the process. We had our public meetings in February. We had a public meeting in September, moved on to business stakeholder meetings and council meetings. And so, so the idea, so what we came up with was, and while the slide screen says May 21 response to business comments, this is just an animated slide for everybody's information. So what I'm showing you now is the design that we presented back in March. This is pretty much the same design that was at council in December. I mean, for the most part, this has been the design that's kind of been in place since November last year. The design that is on the screen. It's got a balance of parking. It's got a balance of green. I do have to note, just for your information, that the green down here, if we stay with this design, will probably go away because it is adjacent to parking spaces. So it's closer in helping us reach those goals that we had set for the project. We've added a mid-block crosswalk. We've daylighted pedestrians so that they can be seen better around parked vehicles. we're looking at adding the green space and the trees to get a softening of the space. And like I said, a balance of the space. It's not perfect, I mean, it still does have a lot of parking. But then when we had our meeting with the business group in March, there was the desire, from some to like from Frank to get rid of all the parking by A and B. So to get rid of this parking. Others were saying, well, add a parking space up in this area, add some parking up by J. McLaughlin. So we listened to you and we put together a new concept that looks like this. And so while Frank, we didn't take away all of the parking by you, we did take away 2 spaces and left 1 space. There was a space here that got removed because we had 3. We removed 1 space here. Like I said, 2 of these spaces went away, and I'm flipping back and forth between the March and the May. Okay. So we added the spaces by J. McLaughlin and up by Kilwins, and we added a space here at the end of the parking near Agricola and Hamilton. But look what it starts to do with that green space, with the softening of the corridor. To me, we're getting back to this, and so it's not desirable, or as desirable as it could be. I look to Elizabeth, Michael, my landscape architects and my planners. Justin, please feel free to jump in with comments. And again, on this drawing, so you'll see where we have all the parking, we lose that green space, we lose that softening. There's
Deanna, I will jump in. I'm really glad you brought this up because I've been very worried about, it seems like there's less and less green space as we move along in this process. And I would question why we're even doing this if we're going to end up with less green space and we're not going to have the presence of shade trees and tree canopy and everything that we talked about.
I agree. And so I know some people have thought about going back to September 2020 when we looked at the ideas of parking only on one side. And that's an option that can, do something to help us. I think, it still may push the balance of we only get greenery on one side. We may be able to have a continuous tree canopy. Because you can still accommodate trees and tree grates next to parking. But the green infrastructure and the stormwater management is a little more challenging in those spaces if you have car doors and people getting in and out of cars. And then from a safety perspective, you go back to this picture where you're going to get the people jaywalking if you have parking only on one side of the road. And if the road was ever to be open to 2-way traffic, you're really limiting how loading and unloading activities and parking circulation occurs. You'll get more of this guy that's pulling in the wrong direction into the parking area to be able to load and unload. So I just, while it sounds like, a nice option to think about the linearity and putting parking just on one side, I'm not sure that solves all of our problems as well.
And I think it would look kind of strange to have trees on only one side.
Right. And so I want to get back to something more like this. And, we have a parking lot mid-block at South Tulane. We've got a parking garage on Spring Street. We have parking on Nassau Street. We've added parking. If I go to the next slide, we've added parking all along the northern end of the project. So, this is really our opportunity to look at this piece and make this a place that people want to come to and spend some time. And so I think we need to find a better balance of parking, you know, something closer to this. And I don't know.
Deanna, I think you're right. I think this is more what we were hoping to end up with. And I had one question, where it says proposed bike parking on the corner of Nassau on Witherspoon there. You know where that bump out is across from Hamilton by the bank?
Yes.
Could that be green and then we just incorporate bike parking within the
No.
landscaped area?
Unfortunately, it's not even bike parking, because if you see, I'll put it on this slide.
Are there underground issues?
Yeah,
Yes,
there are.
underground.
Yeah, Tejal will tell you there's large electrical vaults. That's
Okay.
what those squares in the manhole represent. So we actually can't even put the bike parking on top of it because we
And
can't.
I
Go ahead,
just want to
Tejal.
add here, sorry, I didn't want to, but I just want to add here that I know we have bicycle parking in that area right now. But when we met with the utility companies, I think back in February or March, they were adamant that they cannot move those walls or that electric manhole. They can raise it or lower it, but they cannot move it. And they were adamant that they will not allow any type of parking on top of it.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Michael, I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking the same thing. I thought it was a great way to put planting to get that entrance onto Witherspoon Street. So it's unfortunate that neither planting can be there. But I also agree. I think that there was an agreement early on that there was going to be a reduction in parking, and it seems to be creeping back to more parking and less greenery, which is defeating the purpose of trying to create a really nice streetscape here. If you only had limited green area, you're really not going to be able to successfully achieve that canopy, that streetscape that everyone was thinking about. And as you reduce it, it's almost going to be, you know, it's really not going to be any better than what it is now. And we can see there's some trees there that aren't doing well. And I think this is the best opportunity for us to, you know, improve the street and really make it something special.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well
I mean,
said,
as you walk around town, you know, in Palmer Square, they have the opportunities to have those green spaces, and I think it really does add a lot to the experience of being a person in those areas.
Right.
I
And I
mean,
think it's important for this street because it's very narrow.
mhm.
And even more so versus even as you go down towards the library, there's more open area, more opportunity. But in this location, I think that it's going to really achieve a lot of benefit to be able to have the opportunity to incorporate the green space into the new design.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Elizabeth said. I really think this stretch of Witherspoon should be less parking and it's short-term parking, you're in and out. This is not where a lot of long-term parking should take place. This is the core
Right.
of our downtown. It should be
Yeah.
more green.
Which brings us to the point of, you know, one of the pieces that we wanted to discuss today is, you know, again, I go back to, do we have some shared spaces that are loading zone timed and that maybe go to 30 minutes in the afternoons where the pickup, you know, the whole idea of pickup places, because you have a lot of takeout, would be, but not, you know, not a tremendous amount. We also were talking about changing some Spring Street spaces to 30 minutes and also doing some signage. What we really need to promote is that the Spring Street Garage offers the first 30 minutes free. So if somebody, you know, can just park there to do their, you know, the quick errand, you know, giving them an option to get off the street, because
It's only a block away.
right, some of the
really close.
behavior, some of the behavior, and I'm sure the traffic consultants can probably attest to this, and others that just observation. And, you know, human nature is that you're going to circle to find that ideal spot right in front of where you want to go, as opposed to getting off the street, relieving the traffic, and you know, and getting parked in the garages. But, you know, to move that behavior off the street, you know, we need to do some promotion, some signage, some wayfinding, and Deanne and her team have some plans as far as that. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that.
So I'm going to just keep going, and I just, because we should look at the corridor, at least this section of the project together. So let me just keep moving on. We did do some refinements in the section between Whole Fish and Spring Street. We had removed the parking on this west side, and T&M were able to fit 2 more parking spaces in without impacting truck turning movements. So we do, like I said, we now have these spaces as well. And then as we noted before, we had added parking in front of the library section. And then, you know, this section really hasn't changed from Paul Robeson to the end of the project. So again, back to this conceptual rendering and looking at the materials for the section from Nassau to Spring Street, we're looking to have this green space to really enhance the area, upgrading the materials that are used on the sidewalk and on the pavement. We're looking at this dark paver in a 6x12 for the roadway area. This in this picture, this is the granite curb, so you can see what we would be using, and it has a little rust on it. And then the dark brown in the top corner is the paver color for the sidewalks. And with the sidewalks, we're looking at a 12x24 paver. We are also working with HPC to carry the same paver color through to the north into the Witherspoon Jackson historic district along Witherspoon Street. But in that location, we would look at changing the sidewalk paver size, just because in this section, having the larger paver size works because we have fewer driveways. But where we get into that section to the north where you have more driveways, it's better to work with a smaller paver to adjust to the traffic loading as well as the trees and other things in the area. So just this is where we're at. A subcommittee of HPC has been working with us and has approved these color selections and the sizing. So this just so you see, this is what we're working towards. And again, looking at some of the existing and proposed conditions, I know there's been discussion about outdoor dining and where's it occurring and how's it occurring, and is that being prioritized over other activities. And so I just wanted to point out that, again, while in the COVID condition, we have outdoor dining adjacent to the road area, that's not the ultimate plan. The ultimate plan will be to keep the outdoor dining adjacent to the buildings. So it will be to, you know, provide for 1 row of tables adjacent to the buildings. And that's it. You know, we're trying to find, you know, some improvements, but again, this is a narrow corridor in you know, in actuality, and we've got all of the demands for use. We can make changes to these spaces if we, you know, reduce some of the parking. So that's where I just wanted to point this out. Again, back to the table of parking. In our response to the March business stakeholder meeting, we actually are ending up with more parking in this design than we had at the last in the March meeting. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's not changing. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Dan McGinnis. He's going to talk about the traffic study updates because that's also another item. We understand there's still concerns about the, especially with the reopening of businesses and more activity downtown. So Dan, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Thanks, Deanna. So the last full traffic study we prepared was really to support the selection of the one-way alternative versus the other alternatives. So once that decision had been made, we needed to advance our traffic study to analyze the preferred alternative in more detail for presentation to DOT. But we also wanted to take the opportunity to address some key concerns, including Palmer Square, which we had previously not analyzed. We looked at it because there's a concern about southbound traffic being diverted from Witherspoon onto Palmer Square, and there is some diversion. So we incorporated that in our model, and then looking at Chambers Street, Palmer Square West, and Vandeventer in more detail to determine how to mitigate the additional southbound traffic from Witherspoon onto those roads and develop improvement options to deal with that. Can we go to the next slide, please? There we go. Yeah, so just going intersection by intersection. At Chambers Street, of course, it's a one-way approach. There's currently left turns prohibited in the afternoon peak hour, but based on the analysis, that prohibition is really needed during each key peak period we studied. So weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and then the Saturday peak period. And that'll just mitigate, there just aren't adequate gaps along Nassau for left turning traffic. It really causes delays to right turning traffic. So on a single lane approach, it's problematic. So we're just looking to expand that prohibition to a few additional peak periods, and that'll help all motorists along the approach, and it'll help us meet the DOT's level of service standards. Next slide, please.
I was going to say this is a change from your traffic study in December, because at that point you were looking to prohibit all left turns. And so we looked at this, and Dan was able to limit the prohibition times, but the goal is still to get approval from DOT.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to have unnecessary prohibitions to make things inconvenient during off-peak periods. So yeah, that was a response to those concerns. Next slide, please. So then at Palmer Square, we have a similar problem where there's a lot of heavy traffic on Nassau Street. It's hard to find gaps to take lefts. However, along Palmer Square West, there is available room within the pavement area to provide dedicated left turn lanes and right turn lanes, as my crude rendering shows here, without changing the existing parking or in this case, seating along the curbside there. So that can just be accomplished with signing and striping a lane, no actual road construction. And these two, going back to Palmer, so go back to Chambers. I mean, these provide pretty significant improvements just in terms of level of service, which is just a way to describe delay using letter grades A through F. Going back to Chambers, the additional prohibitions of left turns on Saturday take you from a level of service F to level of service E overall. And then here along Palmer Square West, the dedicated left and right turn lanes will take you from levels of service D and C with the shared left and right turn lanes along that approach to let those separated right turning vehicles operate at level of service B. So a significant improvement. Next slide, please. So we also looked at wayfinding a bit. I know there are different concerns about wayfinding. One concern is how to bring people to the garages. This concept is to address wayfinding for people leaving the garages to get them back to routes 1 and 206. So instead of having them access these congested intersections we're discussing along Nassau Street, the intent would be to direct drivers leaving the Chambers Street and the Whole Fish garages up to the Ropes and Wiggins Street corridor, and then in each direction, west to 206, and then east to Route 1. So that's the intent there.
Yeah. And then we would also be working with supplemental signage in the corridor on the Witherspoon Street corridor, as Michelle had mentioned, to indicate the 30 minutes free parking at Spring Street Garage.
And then, of course, Van Deventer, the area of the most significant congestion downtown. So we had previously evaluated reducing the clearance interval, the flashing don't walk time for the extended pedestrian phase from 31 seconds down to roughly 20. The municipality requested the DOT examine that and also use some of that time to provide additional green time for Van Deventer and Washington approaches. And they came back with a timing directive they proposed, which does that and represents a significant improvement. We analyzed it. It cuts, the overall average delay in half for the intersection as a whole and along the Van Deventer approach in particular. So it represents a significant improvement.
And to add to that, I did speak with DOT today. I advised them that we were in favor of the timing directive that they presented, and it'll go to the traffic engineer to sign off at DOT and then out to maintenance. The traffic engineer had indicated that she felt it could be in place by the end of May. So, we'll start to realize significant changes right away with that.
And just as a reminder of where this timing change comes from. The original timing was based on the time it takes at a conservatively slow walking speed to cross that intersection along the diagonal. So if you use that same conservative slow walking speed to time that clearance into the flashing don't walk time based along the longest striped crosswalk that's out there, crossing at 90 degrees, that is a significant improvement. And it will still accommodate, people will still be able to cross the intersection along the diagonal. Because again, 19 seconds or 20 seconds, it's still a long time. But it will preclude striping a diagonal crosswalk later. That's really the only downside.
Correct. Okay, so I know there's also been questions through the process about coordinating with other activities and just coordinating different requests. And so one thing I wanted to bring to the attention of this group is that we have received a request to change meter time limits on the Spring Street meters. Currently, 5 of the 6 meters have a 3-hour time limit. We have been asked to switch that over to 30-minute maximum. And just wanted to bring that to this group for consideration, both in the short term and in the long term, based on the changes that we're looking to make on Witherspoon Street. Also, yes.
Sorry, could you, do you know what the meter timing is going to be on Witherspoon Street on the strip of the improvement?
I think we're leaning towards 30-minute meters, but that's also subject for discussion. Michelle, do you have a thought?
Yeah, well, that's where I thought maybe we would go, at least with, I think with probably all of them. And, and then it's a question if we really need as many as we've got there right now, especially in the part where we want more green infrastructure. But the 30 minutes, maybe split for some of them as loading zones, maybe on the ends for the trucks to get in and out. So that's really a discussion point that I wanted to talk about today. And ongoing with the business community to get their feedback.
I think I'm almost at I think this is my last slide, so that I'll just touch on a few more comments and then we'll open up to a discussion of everything that's been presented. So I know the big question is hotel construction. We have either just received their compliance plans or they're coming in today, but we had a meeting with the Graduate Hotel folks and they are looking to begin interior demolition in June 2021. And they've indicated that there will be no traffic impacts. We are very cognizant of the concerns of impacts to traffic, and we are working closely with their design team as well as their construction management team to make sure that their activities are coordinated and impacts are minimized to the extent practicable. So we are working on that one. Griggs Corner, Lori may be able to give us more information about this, but I know we are not as advanced in the compliance process with Griggs Corner. So I'm working with Jim. Is it September or is it later?
Deanna, right now we're still waiting on the final approval, which should be, I think, May 24th. Then we'll go into design, development, construction docs. So looking at probably around February for actual construction at this point.
Great. I will update that. So, and then obviously we're coordinating with DOT. They have their construction project to replace the traffic signal at Witherspoon and Nassau, which their project is being funded as part of COVID relief. And so it's on a fast track to be under construction in 2021. You know, there are other large projects in the area that we're cognizant of as well. You've got the art museum, you know, you've got the plethora of applications that have been approved by the planning board. So we are working closely internally and with each of the developers to understand traffic implications related to those projects. So with that, next steps. You've seen this before. It's pretty much, it's the same, you know, we're looking to wrap up this process so we can finish the design and go out to bid. The idea is to start construction in January 2020. Sorry, I put 2022. It is 2022. Thank you. Sorry, I'm losing track of time here. And we're also, just so you know, we're starting the public engagement process on May 18th with a public virtual meeting for Witherspoon Street from Paul Robeson to Valley Road. There's a little bit of an overlap because we have the change in the historic district at Paul Robeson. And so while the Paul Robeson to Green is part of our project, it's part of the Witherspoon Jackson Historic District, and we really haven't focused on the needs of that historic district versus, you know, what we're doing in the central business district. So that's an ongoing process that will start on May 18th. The notice for the meeting is on our website with the Zoom information, so please join us with that for that as well. But that ends the presentation, and I'll stop sharing screen. If anybody has questions, comments, please just let us know.
Thanks.
Deanna, there were several questions in the chat.
Yeah. Do you want to start at the top of the chat? And Jessica had the first question, and then we can go to Nat and Andrew.
Okay, I have not been looking at those, so let me go to that. Nat, bad behavior by delivery trucks, pedestrians, and not private cars. Yes, bad behavior by all. It's not just the delivery trucks and pedestrians. Nat, do you want to elaborate at all on that? I'm trying to see if Nat is still here. Not seeing Nat. Okay, thank you, Sam, for your head shake. That helps. Jessica, I'd like to I would like the opportunity to discuss the short-term changes just pictured. Please, Jessica, elaborate for us.
Hi, Deanna. Thank you. First of all, before I respond to that, I just want to say that the presentation was great, and I really think all of that wayfinding, fine-tuning is awesome. And the changes to Vandeventer coming so soon are also going to be fantastic for the traffic flow. So thank you for all of that. That's awesome. No, the only thing I wanted to say about the short-term plan, which Michelle did share with me yesterday, but I was so busy and I actually forgot about this meeting today until Jack texted me. We do still need outdoor dining in the COVID reality at Small World. I do acknowledge that the congestion on Witherspoon Street right now has some very uncomfortable moments, and I don't know I have ideas and I can discuss that with you guys later, but we do still need outdoor dining for Small World to kind of get through this difficult time. And like, I'm in my front office right now. That outdoor area in front of our store is used from 7 a.m. till we close. Like, it's the only outdoor dining that's used all day long. So I hope that we can figure out a way to solve some of the short-term problems and also accommodate outdoor in front of the cafe.
Jessica, let me just comment to that, because I know, and you've done such a nice job of making it really cute and inviting. The issue was, because right next door, like Hillwinds and Mamoon, the others are not used as much. So what would be ideal in an ideal world would be to put the parking there. But I think there's concerns of safety to pull in and out. So we can talk more about how to finesse this, whether your spot moves down, or if there's some way we can create some parking. We need to create some more parking to take away the curbside, because we don't want to, totally negatively affect the corridor. But anyway, maybe we can talk with Deanna a little bit more about how to change that, because just shifting down, would have been the more simple solution.
Yeah, let's talk afterwards, because I don't want to take over the meeting on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So adding, I don't know, we are recording this and we will post this to the website, so I might as well record or read all the comments. So from Nat Bonheimer, the comments I've heard about the need for active management make sense to me. It's necessary to ensure spaces available are not abused by long-term users. My question is about the resources available for that and who is responsible for that. Agree with Michael Laplace. Also, a lot of research shows that a certainty of a penalty has a much greater impact on behavior than size of penalty. If short-term spaces are short-term, there needs to be enough enforcement to almost guarantee a penalty. I have to jokingly say that we have one person in town that doesn't think we have enough parking enforcement presence downtown. That was something when we went through the parking study, that it was so punitive that the parking enforcement were always downtown. But I do say that jokingly, and with our advanced technology and our staff led by Wes Pollard, will be looking at our meter technology from the meter technology side to see how we can address that, and then working with the police department on the enforcement side as well. And then going on with Nat's comments, and as the councilwoman points out, makes it as easy as possible to be guided to open parking spaces and to use spaces in the garage. So like I said, we'll work with Wes Pollard and his staff to see how we can be responsive to these comments. Wes, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that perspective.
Not at the present time, but the meters are adaptable. Whatever we need to do,
Definitely. Okay. Thanks, Wes. Okay, moving on. We haven't looked at wayfinding to get to the garages in detail, just the guide signing for people to leave the garages and to get them to Route 1. And 206. Hopefully you can address the wayfinding to the garages and I can address the guidance out of town. Oh, sorry, this was a direct message to me, but you're still reading it. Oh, it's from Dan. Sorry about that. Yes, we will be looking at guiding people to the garages, and that there is some overlap with that and what we are doing on a town-wide wayfinding program. Michael Laplace and Justin in the planning department have been coordinating with the university who is
We lost you. We lost you.
We can't hear you, Deanna.
I hear you, Deanna.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself over on this side.
We thought it was just a dramatic pause. It was very dramatic.
No, so Michael Laplace, as I don't know what part you guys heard and didn't hear. Michael Laplace and Justin from the planning department are coordinating with Princeton University, who is in the process of planning a new wayfinding system to the university. So we are looking to have something that's complementary and will enhance our wayfinding to the garages in town. Michael, Justin, do you want to add anything more on that?
No, well, I'd add that we think there's a possibility to, in the short term, piggyback on what they're doing and make sure that the initial signage that they're going to sponsor will direct people into the downtown and to our parking facilities. And then we can add to that with a complimentary signage package that maybe we could use throughout town. That's what we're thinking about.
And this isn't just a nice thought. We're actually going to check out some of the signs today.
Yeah, they do have a display at the university, so we're all walking over there today to take a look at it. But in the short term, we are trying to look at what else we can do on Witherspoon Street now. We have so many signs out there, and I think once we do remove that curbside pickup, that can help us then add different signage that helps direct people to the garages and add in the information about the 30 minutes free. So so we are continually looking at that as to how to do that. Nat asked if I can share the presentation. Definitely, I will put it on the website, but I also will make that change that Lori pointed out for Griggs Corner construction so that we don't have any confusion on the dates. Let's see. In the last slide, it appears that the sidewalks are going to be narrower in the new design. Is that correct? They are not going to be narrower. They just, in that May response to the business owners, they're just not as wide consistently as may be desirable.
Deanna, can I interrupt for a second? If you want to have Andrew, maybe rather than read it, because he's still on the line, Andrew, then Jack, then Frank, maybe they can comment and we can.
Yes, thank you, Michelle.
Because they're still here. Thanks.
Andrew, please start.
Hey, Deanna, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, no, my question was, first of all, thanks for this presentation because, and Dan, your change on the left turn at Chambers, I think is welcomed. I still have some traffic concerns in terms of people getting to Princeton from the north and their limited availability to, essentially their limited routes to Princeton. I do think we're still going to have backups, but I think we're working towards solutions and the getting rid of the no left turn forever. I think is somewhat helpful, and certainly the Van Deventer changes coming are going to be helpful also. So it feels like it's getting somewhat better, although I'm sure there's still work to be done on your guys' part. You know, my point about the that I put in the chat was just we have I heard, okay, so we're going to try to encourage short-term parkers to go to the garages, which is great because it's free for 30 minutes and that's a benefit to them. We're also thinking about making 5 of the 6 spring parking spots, if I read that correctly, 30 minutes. And I think, Michelle, you made a comment about trying to get most of Witherspoon to be 30 minutes. And like, that's all great, but I just want to make sure that everyone understands that I believe we do need a good, healthy mix of shorter term and longer term street parking. I know we're trying to, through wayfinding, trying to get people to the garages for long-term parking, which I think is an amazing idea. And it's the way we should be doing it. But the truth is that there are still people who want convenience. And if there's a parking space on the street, would like to snag it. And frankly, 30 minutes versus 3 hours, or, some shopping trips are not 30 minutes. I mean, the majority of my, anyone who wants to come in for an engagement ring is not quite 3 hours, right? But it's also a little bit longer than 30 minutes. And I know that that's the case for a lot of the other retailers on the street. So I just want to make sure that we're not just utilizing, we're going to have a bunch of street parking and have those spaces, but maybe they'll be empty because people say, well, I'm going to be a little bit longer than 30 minutes, but I'm not going to be quite 3 hours. So I don't know how we do that. If there's a mix, if we do it by time, I know we have with the new smart parking system, potentially the ability to change limits by the time of day and things like that. But I'd just love to be able to see some longer term parking on the street if people can snag it for convenience sake, so that they don't have to go to the garage. And Michael, I appreciate your point that it's only a block away, but the truth is that, we do have people who visit town who want some convenience. And just me speaking personally, I know this is unique, right? I'm not saying this is everyone's situation, but I have clients who carry valuable things with them when they come to my store, and they don't necessarily like walking a longer distance. They like the convenience. So Deanna, long story short, if there's any way that we can mix and match short-term and long-term on the street parking, I think it would be beneficial, understanding that the majority of long-term parking, we still want to go to the garage.
Andrew, don't we, the parking spaces that are in front of your building on Nassau Street and all along Nassau Street, they're not limited to 30 minutes, right?
Michael, you're cutting out.
I said the spaces on Nassau Street in front of Hamilton Jewelers and along the street there, they're not limited to 30 minutes, correct?
None of it is.
Correct.
Yeah, none of it is now. There were 30-minute spaces, but we got rid of them during COVID, I believe.
And the 2-lane yard, that's not 30 minutes either, right?
No, that's correct.
So we could
It's
increase signage to that, because I think that is underused right now.
And north of Spring Street is also, we wouldn't be looking to put 30-minute parking there unless, there's an overwhelming desire. So the 30-minute that we're talking
Gotcha.
about is really in that section from Nassau to Spring.
Gotcha. Okay.
And we
okay,
are
good.
still, when we're still adding in where those taxi stands were, we still haven't gotten the parking meters there, but they're going to be longer.
3 hours.
3 hours.
They'll be 3 hours.
Long,
Okay, good.
right across the street. And I think we have to look, I think maybe we have the shared, I'd like to get the feedback, the shared loading zone idea. Then does it convert to a longer term, or does it convert to 30 minutes? It might be easier if it converts to the longer term 3 hours and the others stay 30 minutes. So, I mean, they're just,
Yeah, that's fine. Listen, my point is, as long as there's a mix, right? That all sounds great. That Justin, that 2-lane yard, I don't know. That's the one that when you make the right, you're going down Witherspoon, you make the right at Mezzaluna, I assume. I mean,
Yes,
that's
correct.
always. I mean, that's where my office is. That's always filled. So I don't know. I don't know if there's data that says it's underutilized, but and maybe it's just filled by construction vehicles these days because there's so much work going on. But there's definitely. I mean, if you can find a space in that yard during the day, then give me a call, because I've got clients who want them. So.
Okay.
Just let me know.
But we'll have to talk about it, because again, if we do want this to be a more pedestrian friendly place, that may lend itself to longer term parking. So we'll see, we'll see, we'll talk about it and keep working on that piece of it. All right. So Andrew, are you finished? Do you have any more comments?
On this matter, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Jack, would you like to share your comments, please?
Yes, and thank you, Deanna. This is very good, and I'm thrilled that step by step, if we can start to promote the free period in Spring Street, that I think that's going to attract hopefully a lot of people that you see free and go there. Back to Michael and Elizabeth's concerns about we're losing the spirit of this streetscape. I also, and we've all seen different iterations of seasonality. You know, the reality of this is it's beautiful now, and then it's ugly and snowy and rainy in the winter. So I hope that maybe we can incorporate the seasons where we can roll out and create a streetscape during the pleasant months, and then go back to something less. This winter was not that attractive with all these areas of entertainment. I always said it looked like a state fair that closed in August and was waiting to reopen in the spring. So if there's a way for us to be smart about and put the parklets in and accommodate the spirit of what the community and all of us are trying to create, but then go back to something that's more functional in the winter, I would just hope that we can, and this is what urban planners do. You know, they sort of listen to it, they accommodate both the seasons and the community. So, but I thank you for including the business community, Michelle, bravo. And we look forward to get past the construction period and get back to business. Thank you.
I could touch on that. We've definitely thought about that. Excuse me. You know, there's a change of material with the pavers in the one way, and that opens up the opportunity to, you know, on nice winter days or reunions or summer weekends to close that down, you know, if it's feasible and if it's deemed kind of better for economic development and to get people downtown. So we definitely hope to incorporate the seasons into this design.
And I wanted to add something in here. The green infrastructure that we are proposing is according to the current weather conditions that DEP allows. There are certain plantings that you can plant in the belt that we are in. There are certain plantings we cannot plant. So we are going to make sure that it looks consistently nice throughout the year. So rest assured that we will take care of that.
Yes.
I was just going to add to what Justin said. I think we should always also remember that we can program this stretch of Witherspoon Street to maybe have more regular times when the street's closed and it's a plaza, you know, maybe weekends in the evenings when it doesn't conflict with loading and retail activity. So we have that possibility as well. We can do that on a regular basis. You know, maybe Sundays in the street or something like that, whatever we decide, and holidays.
And just to add to the seasonal landscape, I believe the selection of plant material is also very crucial. A lot of times people think that unless a plant is only blooming, that's when it has interest, but there's a lot of vegetation that has winter interest that I think that they should be incorporated into it. So the streetscape always has something to look at.
Yes, we will take care of that. That was one of the things that our stormwater engineers are looking into. Yes.
Yeah. And from the staff perspective, we are working internally. You know, green infrastructure is new. It's new to a municipal operation, especially a public works operation. And, you know, we will be working with our public works department to make sure that appropriate attention is given to these areas so they don't become garbage collection places.
Yes, there is definitely the maintenance involved. There's going to be a maintenance plan that we're going to give you for that green infrastructure that needs to be followed. So yeah, green infrastructure will go hand in hand with the maintenance so that it looks the way it is designed throughout the year.
Yeah, and it functions the way it's designed. Definitely.
Yeah, and we've also talked about, particularly with the introduction of new shade trees, we'd love to frame the view of Fitzrandolph Gate and Nassau Hall as you look up the access of Witherspoon Street, as you look south, because that's really iconic. That's an iconic view in Princeton. We want to definitely enhance that.
And you know what, Michael, I was disheartened when the utility company, PSEG, said that they will not relocate the walls that are in there because they're very crucial and it's not possible. But that being said, that the idea of having that gateway with the green belt right at the intersection of Nassau and Witherspoon is not going to work. I mean, we can put in pockets where Hamilton Jewelers is, but there is a fire hydrant that needs to be located. That's not a big issue, but we cannot do anything on.
Yeah, I understand that. I was talking about the entire stretch that we're looking at in Witherspoon. As you look down Witherspoon right now, local people love the view, particularly when you can see winter, fall, early spring of Nassau Hall and the gate. We want to take advantage of that. I didn't mean just at the corner.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And at the corner by Bank of America, there are opportunities to look at planters. From the police perspective, looking at Heinz Plaza, Police and Emergency Services, there has been a request to consider large planters by Heinz Plaza to protect that space in case you have, errant vehicles that want to enter a protest area or whatever it may be, a large public gathering. So, it's something that when we're looking at a treatment at Heinz Plaza, up at that corner by Bank of America, maybe there's something we can do along the building frontage to have at least a concrete planter or some sort of a freestanding planter that adds to the green rather than just having a big concrete standing area. Frank, would you like to speak next?
Yes. I listened to everyone and a lot of different ideas for different retailers, and I understand where everyone's coming from. I really agree that if we could do a little more work on the elimination of a couple more parking spaces on Witherspoon, it would make that greenery a much better look, especially when you come down the walkway between the Alchemist and Barrister and the building next to it. You're walking right into Witherspoon Street. There's a parking spot. You're going to see it right there. That's one parking spot. If you take that away, the greenery is much better along the front of the buildings there. So that's my opinion about that. And also, there's something else I'd like to point out concerning parking. There's an article in a very good book by Mr. Jeff Speck, Walkable Cities. And in that book on page 133, he speaks about two towns. One is Westwood Village and one is Old Pasadena. And then there he shows the difference of what happened to those two towns and how bad it was, because one town encouraged large costs in parking. The fees were higher in the parking. I'm not talking about the timing. I'm talking about how much it costs to park. And the one who had the highest charges for parking did the best for retailing. Now, you got to read the whole article, but it was very significant thinking. And I thought that should be at least looked at for purposes of determining how to deal with this parking situation. You're smiling, Deanna. I guess you read the book. I don't know what your opinion is, but that's my thoughts on it.
I'm remembering the meter infrastructure change. I was going to say that you're hitting a very, very, very sensitive spot.
Okay.
Okay, I think I've gotten through all of the comments. Anyone else on the call, please feel free, unmute yourself if you have comments. Okay, so like I said, next phase, we are going to council on Monday night to have an update for council as well. They have not seen the traffic study updates that Dan presented here today. So we'll be discussing that at council. And depending on if Tejal wants to have a Mother's Day weekend or not, you know, she and I may be working on revising the plan layout. Maybe we'll give each other a break and we'll hold off on that and just discuss what we discussed here today. But we will continue to look at the parking, the loading, and refine it, trying to get back to those ideals that we discussed in this early on in this presentation. Michelle, Mark, Bernie, I turn it back over to all of you.
Well, I just said thank you for doing such a wonderful job with this, for being, you know, sensitive to the varying needs of the business and residential community. And, you know, we have more work, I think, still to do, but we're getting there. Thank you, Dan, for responding to the traffic issues that are coming up. I think you know, there's some good mitigation here. I think there's still some concerns, but we're moving forward. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. And thanks everyone for attending.
Yeah, I'd just like to jump in and thank everybody for being here this morning also. And I think the goal of the entire elected body is to try to find the right balance of all the competing needs. And I think that'll show up in our discussion this coming Monday night. And I think the plan allows flexibility. So as things change in the future, we should be able to do different things on Witherspoon as needed. So I think that's pretty key. But anyway, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Happy Mother's Day to all of you.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.